Without further delay, I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Michael Rahim, Senior Product Manager for the Microsoft Corporation. Michael, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Rahim. I'm a Senior Product Manager in the SQL Server team. Today's topic, I'm here with my colleague, actually my manager, Francois Argenstad. He's going to be the silent partner today, staying online, answering your questions, and sharing his expertise with you. The topic today is selecting the right version of SQL Server 2005, the right edition to fit your business. A bit of background about myself. I've been with the SQL Server team, specifically in the development team on the technical side, for about since the start of 2005, so it's almost like 7 years now. And prior to that, I've been working with SQL Server for the past 13 years. And if you could see me, yes, I am as old as I sound and I look. So let's get started and see what we're going to have on the agenda today. We're going to talk about primarily SQL Server 2005 comes in a variety of editions. However, one size does not fit all. So what we're going to cover is determining how you go about choosing the right edition of SQL Server for your business. While we're going through this method of determination, I'll give you an overview of the key differences between each of the editions of SQL Server 2005 and help you understand the differences between each of the editions, specifically Standard and Enterprise Edition, which we see customers have a lot of questions on. So I'm going to delve into those two specific editions to help you better understand what the differences are. Just for your information, the level of technical depth that we're going into today is level 200. However, do not hesitate if you want to ask technical questions, because as I mentioned, I'm actually more of a technical guy than high-level guy. So I'll try to stay at high level, but don't hesitate if you have specific deep technical questions. I'll be happy to answer those questions at the end of the presentation. Francois, as I mentioned, is also online, so if you have questions, he can also help you with those if you just want to ask questions during the presentation. So the first question that comes to mind is, why does SQL Server come in a variety of editions? What's the purpose of that? Well, SQL Server 2005 is a comprehensive data platform that comes in different sizes for all kinds of applications and hardware platforms. If you really think about it, it goes all the way from running SQL Server on a mobile device up to enterprise-class servers with 64 processors, quad-core or multi-core. So having to support different set of hardware, different types of workload, and also different types of budget that you may have for your specific business, that's where SQL Server is trying to cover a spectrum of applications, if you would, to match the size of your business, the size of the hardware that you're running, and the type of application that you're running. And it goes without saying that obviously choosing the right edition of SQL Server is absolutely crucial for your business to make sure that not only it meets the demand of your business today, but also as your business grows in the future, you have chosen the right edition that you can actually keep up with your business. There are really two types of, we wanted to classify different editions of SQL Server into two buckets, the best way to describe this is really looking at the kind of database engine that can be embedded, whether it's a mobile device or it's a desktop, you can actually embed that into your application. And then there is the traditional client server, the server type data service that you expect to have from a server product. So here we have, on the embedded side, the Compact Edition, SQL Server 2005 Compact Edition. And throughout this presentation, I'll be talking about CE or SQL CE, which basically means SQL Server Compact Edition. And then we have 4 SKUs or 4 editions that act as the data service side, starting with the Express Edition all the way up to the Enterprise Edition that we have. If you actually look at what is it that each one of these editions is targeted for, here's a quick overview. So on the embedded side, the SQL Server Compact Edition is positioned to be for the mobile and embedded application. It's free, it comes free, and it's a single user embedded database service, database engine that you can include in your application. It's very lightweight, so it can actually fit onto mobile devices, and it's very easy to deploy. And on top of that, the maintenance part of it is actually fairly simple. It's got features in there that it can auto-maintain itself. And then there's the Express Edition, which is for the academic and individual. It's also free for those individuals who want to kind of kick the tires and get an understanding of what SQL Server is. It's a great edition for the students or academic reasons, for academic applications where they want to better understand what 2005 has to offer. Then there's the Workgroup Edition, which is for the small business and branch. Then the Standard Edition, which goes to the mid-sized business and departmental. And then our Ultimate Edition, which is the Enterprise Edition, which supports the business-critical applications. So as you see, the simplicity and the number of features as we go through varies as you go from Express Edition all the way to Enterprise Edition, and it kind of matches the size of the business that you may have. Needless to say that you may have an enterprise organization that may be leveraging all these 5 editions of SQL Server in a variety of applications. So it's not like you have to run every application that you have just because you're an enterprise guy. Every application has to run on the Enterprise Edition. You can actually tune or go for the optimum solution depending on the workload that you have. So let's start by taking a look at the SQL Server 2005 Compact Edition and the Express Edition. So here in a matrix, what I've done is I actually put the key features on the left and how they compare between the Compact Edition and the Express Edition. As far as the cost goes, both of these are free. The execution model, as I mentioned, is the Compact Edition is an in-class DLL that you can embed into your application, whereas the Express Edition is a client server. It's a service that actually runs on a server, and your clients need to connect in a traditional client server sort of application. The administration options, the Compact Edition, the non-admin installation option is available, so you can actually have that the database engine embedded in your application and starts executing in the context of the user, not the administrator, whereas that option is not available on the Express Edition. The footprint, the download on the disk for the binaries is about 2 or 3 meg, whereas the Express Edition is 197 meg. And while it's running, it could take up 2 or 3 meg of RAM, so it's very small, targeted mostly for the mobile or small desktops, whereas the Express Edition has a cap of 1 gigabyte of RAM. I just want to be clear here, if your application requires more than 1 gig of RAM in order to run with the performance that you're expecting, Express Edition may not be the right edition for you, because we have our Express Edition has a specific limitation that it cannot leverage more than 1 gig of RAM. So the question usually comes up is, what if I have 4 gig of RAM on that server and I'm running Express Edition? Would Express be leveraging those? The answer is no. It does not. It cannot exceed more than 1 gig of RAM. So the other 3 gig will be idling, and 1 gig would be fully utilized. The maximum database size, both of these editions are limited to 4 gig. Once again, you reach that limit. If you think you are going to reach that limit, it's a good practice to start looking at higher editions, which have relaxed the specific size limit on the database, or they support higher database size applications. As far as the connection goes, the connection model for the Express Edition is a multi-user with unlimited connections. I just want to be specific by unlimited. We mean that there is no restriction within the database engine. But obviously, if you have, the more connections you have, the more memory you'll be using off the server, and soon you're going to run into the point where you cannot accept more connections. But there are no restrictions as far as how many connections you can have on Express Edition, as long as you have appropriate amount of system resources, whereas on Compact Edition, it's a single user with 256 connections. The data synchronization, the SQL Server 2005 comes with a very strong synchronization method, so you can actually have the remote data access, RDA, available, primarily because most of the usage scenarios for the compact edition are occasionally connected systems where you want to take part of your corporate data or your master application with you on that mobile device or desktop application, and then later on be able to synchronize it. Whereas on 2005, it supports replication, but it can only be a subscriber. And then you may want to take advantage of service-oriented architectures, which is more complex, by leveraging Service Broker, which is a wonderful technology available in the Express edition. Next, continuing with the differences, is what is the T-SQL limitation? Well, the SQL Server CE or Compact Edition has only a subset of T-SQL language. For example, you cannot define stored procedures within the Compact Edition, whereas the Express Edition supports the full T-SQL as available in the T-SQL language. I just want to be specific, or that for those of you who are asking if there is a specific feature, for example, that is not available in Express Edition, such as, for example, let's say partitioning, the T-SQL language, when it comes to, for example, creating a partition, would error out on the Express Edition as well as the Compact Edition. But the ANSI SQL, as it stands in the Transact SQL language, is supported on both of these. The stored procedures and views, as I mentioned, are not available. Distributed transactions is not available on Compact Edition, but it is supported on the Express Edition. Management tools. There is a version of SQL Server Management Studio called the Express Edition, which is free, and you can download it separately to manage your SQL Server Express Edition, whereas you need the full suite of SQL Server Management Studio available in other SKUs to manage Compact Edition. Compact Edition by itself does not have any tools. However, you can use the Express Edition, for example, to manage your Compact Edition as well. As far as security goes and encryption, the data encryption is fully available in the Express Edition. But when it comes to Compact Edition, the only thing you can do is actually encrypt the data files that hold the database data to have some kind of security. Otherwise, there's no native encryption available within the product Compact Edition itself. Full text search is not available in Compact Edition, but it's available in Express. The same as reporting services. The basic reporting services, the ability to report based on your data, is not available on Compact Edition, but it comes in Express Edition, but only Express Advanced. So when you go to download SQL Server 2005 Express Edition, if you look at the download page, there are two variations of it. There is the Express Edition and Express Edition with Advanced options. Express Edition with Advanced options includes reporting services, Express Edition, but it's a bigger download, it's 190 meg or so, whereas the Express Edition, the non-advanced, does not have that option. So, what are the usage scenarios for these two Express and Compact Edition? As I mentioned, you can have personal applications on both of these. However, the Compact Edition is more for the enterprise mobile applications or for occasionally connected systems. A great way is if you have a Bluetooth device that you want to take part of your, let's say, like, for example, music or stamp collection along with you. You want to look at, for example, all the stamps that you have collected in the previous year and have that available on your mobile device and be able to look up that information, perhaps update it. Compact Edition is ideal to take that along with you in your PDA and be able to occasionally connect to the main server that you have to update it. Some of the industrial applications, for example, the set-top boxes like DVRs, for example, is some of the manufacturers are using Compact Edition in their DVRs, for example, to maintain a database system to support the videos and the catalog and so on the set-top boxes. Express Edition is also available for academics and individuals to build their applications. The database size is less than 4 gigabytes. But one of the interesting usage scenarios that we're seeing, especially enterprise customers use Express for, is for to maintain high availability on database mirroring. They're actually using Express as a witness. Our licensing allows that to happen, so they're actually use Express to have it be part of the database mirroring forum. I'll talk more about database mirroring later on. You can see why Express Edition is a perfect candidate to be the witness. Okay. Oh yeah, actually I'm just going to go quickly to the previous slide. If you need more information about what the differences between Compact Edition and Express Edition is, we have a wonderful white paper that describes different usage scenarios and programming models and so on. If you need more information, this is a great resource to take a look at. Okay, now let's look at the next edition that we have, which is the Workgroup Edition, and see how that compares with the Express Edition. So the major differentiation between these two is that you can see that on the Express Edition, the number of CPUs is limited to 1, and that's irrespective of the number of cores that you may have. However, on the Workgroup Edition, you can have up to 2 CPUs. So the question usually comes in, I have a 2 CPU computer server with dual core. Does Workgroup Edition support all 4 cores? The answer is yes. I don't see you guys asking that question, but that's typically it's a very common question. Soon we're going to have quad cores, and obviously if they're packaged into 2 CPUs, we support up to 8 cores on that dual CPU example that I just mentioned. The memory, Express Edition is limited to 1. Workgroup Edition bumps that up to 3 gigs. Again, that's a limitation, hard limitation within the product. If you have more memory on that server, it may be leveraged by the Windows operating system or other applications that are running in there, but the Workgroup Edition would not exceed 3 gigabytes of that. The database size, Express Edition is limited to 4 gig. This is the amount of data that you're actually storing in SQL Server. Workgroup Edition does not have any limits. So as much as your disk and resources allow, you can store information by leveraging the Workgroup Edition. High availability. So this is where now things could start to get interesting. You want to have the ability to ensure some kind of business uptime. Express Edition doesn't give you that option, whereas the Workgroup Edition has log shipping. It's one of the features that we had back in SQL Server 2000, for those of you who are using SQL Server 2000. But log shipping is a good example of where you can configure Workgroup Edition to have some kind of high availability. Still, we don't recommend that for mission-critical applications. We have other technologies which I'm going to get into. But it is available somewhat in Workgroup Edition if you want to achieve that high availability. Replication, Workgroup Edition could be a publisher, but there's some limitations, whereas the Express Editions can only be subscriber. SQL Server Agent is not present in the Express Edition, and the Workgroup Edition has Agent. What does SQL Server Agent do? Well, this is actually the part of SQL Server that allows you to run scheduled jobs. So you can, for example, have a maintenance job of backing up your database, and you can schedule it through SQL Server Agent to run every night. That option is not available on Express, but on Workgroup Edition now, you can leverage Agent to schedule jobs to perform certain tasks, and it's a wonderful tool for performing maintenance tasks during, for example, a less busy hour when you want to back up the system or create indices or update the statistics and so on. That's where SQL Server Agent comes handy. Import and Export Wizard is a utility that allows you to bring data from outside resources. For example, let's say you have an Excel spreadsheet that contains information, and now you want to bring that into SQL Server. Well, there's a wonderful utility called Import-Export Wizard that allows you to do that. That's only available on the Workgroup Edition and up, but not on the Express Edition. If you want to do specific reporting, Workgroup Edition has a rich ability to do reporting, but that's not available in the Express Edition. So what are the usage scenarios for the Workgroup Edition? It's a perfect size database to run for the small business, or if you're part of large enterprise, to have your branch application. A good example is if you have, for example, let's say a grocery store that has a headquarter or a corner store that has a headquarter based on a large city, and they have multiple corner grocery stores in each of the neighborhoods. Then you may have to want to have those corner store grocery stores to run on the Workgroup Edition, which is a branch application, and be able to talk to your headquarter database system, which could possibly run on the Enterprise Edition. The price is right. It's affordable for small businesses. It's about $4,000 US. And the application requirements, as far as what kind of workload you can run on it, it's the if you have a simple application that doesn't have a lot of complexity as far as performance and scale goes, it's good enough to run on the Workgroup Edition. The number of users also take resources in SQL Server. We don't recommend running high number of users against the Workgroup Edition. It also provides reporting for a small number of users. Okay, so the next one from Workgroup Edition is the Standard Edition. This is where the number of CPUs that was limited in 2, now you start to see some kind of scalability and performance where you can push that up to 4 CPUs, and taking advantage of the multi-core technology, you can actually bump that up to take advantage of up to 8 or 16 cores to gain the performance and scalability that you need with the Standard Edition. The 64-bit, both Intel architecture and also the x64 architecture is not available on the Workgroup Edition, but on the Standard Edition, native 64-bit is available. I have a sub bullet here that says it's Windows on Windows. What does that mean? That means if you try to install the Workgroup Edition on Windows 64-bit, it runs, but only in the 32-bit mode. That's what Windows on Windows, or WoW, means. It won't take advantage of the native 64-bit for its operation, whereas the Standard Edition gives you the ability to execute in the 64-bit native mode. The memory on the Workgroup Edition is limited to 3 gig, as we mentioned before, whereas now on the Standard Edition, there's no limitation. As much memory as available to the operating system could be allocated to SQL Server. There's no hard limitation within the product. High availability, we mentioned that log shipping was only the Workgroup Edition. Now, Standard Edition gives you not only log shipping, but also 2-node clustering. If you want to have redundancy at the hardware level, you can take advantage of clustering, but it's only limited to 2 nodes. You can only have 2-node clusters, as well as database mirroring. That's a new high availability technology, very popular in SQL Server 2005, and I'll show you a demo of it briefly, how that works. Replication, we mentioned that it was limited in the Workgroup Edition. Replication services are fully available in the Standard Edition, so you can disperse your data and take advantage of some level of redundancy by deploying replication. Advanced management and performance tuning tools. So even though Management Studio and configuration tools are available in the Workgroup Edition, when it comes to doing profiling the data, meaning capturing, for example, what sort of activity is running on the server so you can troubleshoot performance issues, that tool is not available in Workgroup Edition, but Standard Edition gives you that. I'm going to show you a demo of that as well. And next is business intelligence services. So standard edition is the first entry level where you can take advantage of what SQL Server has to offer in its BI suite. Speaking of which, so let's see what's available in the standard edition as far as the BI goes. So this is the entry level where you have the analytics, the ability to mine that data and be able to predict trends within your data. SQL Server can store lots and lots of data, but how do you go and extract information out of that data so you can grow your business and have some insight into how your business is performing? That's where data mining and analysis services come in. It's also the entry level for SQL Server integration services. So if you have a heterogeneous environment or you move a lot of data between systems or from a web service or even from other database engines such as Oracle, if you want the ability to push the data between the two servers and do reporting, that's where Standard Edition does a fantastic job of be able to extract, transform, and load the data, and then on top of that, be able to report from both SQL Server and non-relational sources. And also take advantage of notification services to notify based on a specific event, where you can subscribe to a specific report and push that throughout your organization. So in summary, when is Standard Edition appropriate? Here's what we call the Tier 2 application. So important, if you have an application that performs an important business function, but does not really require the, it's not as critical as, for example, a mission-critical application that your business relies on, the Standard Edition does a fantastic job of supporting that Tier 2 application. It provides some basic business continuity. We talk about the HA features, the high availability features that are available in there. Those are available to perform, to give you some kind of business continuity. It provides the ability to do, to support applications that are, again, are not super complex, but and they don't demand, super high scale, but it performs really well with those simple applications. Small deployment, and also reporting with a small number of users. So as long as you don't have scale issues with the reporting application, it's a good one. Another point that I mentioned is it also has those tuning and performance tuning capabilities, that tools that are available in Standard Edition. So with that, let's take a look at what you can do, for example, to meet your business demand performance with SQL Server 2005 Standard Edition when it comes, for example, a combination of reporting services and the performance tuning tool. So here is my organization's reporting services. And within here, I have a bunch of reports that I've created. Within here, there's something called the monthly sales report. Imagine you're in a scenario where you have created a bunch of reports, and the reports were running fine on SQL Server, for example, 2005 Standard Edition, but now they start to get slower and slower. So here's a report that, for example, we put together. It's rendering right now. And throughout this demo, I'm going to show you how long it takes for the report to run when it's not, when the performance is not tuned. And then I'm going to take advantage of the tools that are available in SQL Server 2005 Standard Edition to actually tune this report and rerun it. So here's my report. I'm going to go and try to, now I'm running the report and rendering it. As you see, the reporting services here, which is available in Standard Edition, is now trying to render my monthly sales report. And this takes about, I ran it a couple of times before the session, it takes about 20 seconds or so for it to run. So here's the report for a fictitious company. I called it the Terabyte Catering. And you can see it shows me which salespeople have, what kind of net sales they've had, and so on. What I've done is on the bottom of this report, I reported the execution time, about 18 seconds or so for the report to run. And this is the time it started and so on. So Just to show you that this is not smoke and mirrors, I'm going to rerun the report one more time so that we can eliminate any caching factors that you may think it may have as far as the data being pushed into the cache that it may run faster or so. But still, it takes about 20 seconds or 18 seconds or so. So yeah, it actually went down to 16 seconds. So we gained 2 seconds in caching. But how do we go about leveraging the tools in Standard Edition to actually tune the performance of this report? On the underlying report,
Hey, Michael, sorry to interrupt, but we can't see the demo. It's not on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go. There's your desktop now.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. So here's the report that I was talking about 16 seconds or so for it to render. It must have been awful for you folks just sitting there wondering what I was clicking on. But here's the report. So what I'm going to do is show you what is the actual query, the underlying query for this report. The report is actually a very simple query that basically performs a select from a table called sales for the products named events. Now, I can go ahead and use the traditional DBA tools, which I used to use 10 years ago, do the show plan and see what indices have been leveraged and so on. But there's an easier way to do this. I can actually go and launch a tool called Database Tuning Advisor. So if you go to SQL Server 2005 installation, you can see on the performance tools, there's something called Database Engine Tuning Advisor. And what I'm going to do is launch that, connect to the same instance where the report was running, and then push that query into this tool. So here's a session name by default. It picked the time that I was running it. On the workload I'm going to choose is basically the query that I just showed you in Management Studio. So the name of the file is called report query, and I'm going to go and pick that report query. So that's the file that contains the information. And this actually analyzes the workload against the database. So I'm going to pick the database called terabyte, which my report was running on, and also select that database. Here we go, for analyzing. Now, on the tuning options, there are lots of complex or more advanced tuning options that you can choose as far as what you want this tool to do. Do you want to use the existing indices, or do you want to have a partition strategy, or do you want to keep the current physical data structures and so on? But I'm going to keep everything as default, and then go ahead and start the analysis. Now, the analysis takes about 30 seconds or so for this particular workload, and what it comes back is not only the physical data structures, the indices or partitions or statistics that we need to create on the database, but it also comes back and tells me what is the existing index in there that I no longer need. So it came back with 2 recommendations, which, by the way, you can see it would increase the performance of this report to 79 or 80%. That's pretty significant. And so it came back with 2 recommendations. It wants to create an index, and it wants to drop the existing index. So this is an index that we created before, but it's no longer good for this type of query. You can actually look at the body of the statement that you need to run against the server to apply these recommendations. You can copy these to perform further analysis and so on. But what I'm going to do in this case is to say, I'm going to go ahead and apply these recommendations on the fly. When you apply the recommendations, you can either apply them immediately, or you can schedule them. For example, creation of an index may hinder the performance of your system. You don't want to do it right away. You can actually create a job, a SQL Server agent job, to apply those when your server is not as busy. So then it goes through the steps. It generates the C SQL language. It changed the context to the database. It dropped the index. Remember, we had that one of the recommendations was, the first one here was to drop the index. So it performed that operation. And next is creating the next clustered index, which was the second recommendation. Now, this operation takes about 2.5 minutes or so. So what I'm going to do is switch to slides and then come back in about 2 minutes or so and see what happened with the index creation, and ultimately what kind of effect does this have on the report. So let's switch back to the slides, and we'll come back in about 2 minutes or so. See if I can get this right. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's continue and compare the standard edition to the enterprise edition. So this is where, as I mentioned, the enterprise edition is the ultimate edition, and this is where there's some confusion as far as customers, especially with 2000, is they question, what is the specific scenarios where I should be choosing enterprise edition between the standard edition, because there seem to be some high availability in scale and no database size. What do I really get out of enterprise edition? So let's take a look at that specifically. Remember, the number of CPUs was limited to 4. Now, on the enterprise edition, there's no limit. As many CPUs, and today that's 64 CPUs available in Windows Server, in the data center edition of Windows. As many CPUs are available in the Windows operating system are also available on the enterprise edition. As far as scalability and performance goes, standard edition was limited. There is no limit with the enterprise edition. Also, on the high availability side, we have something called SQL Server Always On Technologies, which has sophisticated high availability features for those planned or unplanned downtime. So this is like that disaster recovery scenario, where if it's critical for your business when the system goes down to come back as quick as possible, if you want to minimize that the amount of downtime due to that unexpected disaster, that's where the enterprise edition just absolutely shines, and it has features as part of the Always On technologies that assist you with that recovery downtime. Next is the enterprise manageability. There's no such, there's very little, actually, I should say, in the standard edition, where the enterprise edition has enough manageability features to push it into, to make it perfect candidate, perfect edition for the managing your enterprise. Common criteria compliance as part of the security. That's a new standard in the industry that actually within Service Pack 2 of SQL Server 2005. It's the first release of SQL Server to meet those tough common criteria compliance as far as the security goes, to have that in the Enterprise Edition. So the Enterprise Edition is the first one that meets the common criteria compliance. If you're trying to run a big data warehouse and you want to take advantage of, for example, sliding window or partitioning, those are features that make the Enterprise Edition just ideal. I used to be a DBA back in the late 90s, and I had my own sliding window kind of manageability scripts, and it was just painful. Sure, you can do this in Standard Edition, but Enterprise Edition just makes it a breeze with the partitioning, both for data and index partitioning. Advanced Business Intelligence is only available on the Enterprise Edition. If you have reporting applications that need to scale, or you have sophisticated systems that take advantage of analysis services, again, Enterprise Edition is the ideal SQL Server Edition to be considering. So the usage scenarios, in summary, for the Enterprise Edition are business critical. If you have an application and it cannot be down and it hurts your business, the Enterprise Edition is the way to go. If you have a large number of users and you have a complex application that the service level agreement has a very demanding service level agreement, Enterprise Edition is the way to go. High transaction volumes and high performance applications, as I mentioned, is perfect for Enterprise Edition. Same as virtual servers and server consolidation. Consolidation being a hot topic these days. Obviously, the cost, the TCO goes down if you can consolidate those smaller servers into one enterprise application, and you can see significant reduced cost in operating the system. Geographically dispersed deployment. So with features such as, for example, peer-to-peer replication, which is only available in the Enterprise Edition, those are ideal technologies to have geographically dispersed systems. Data warehousing, as I mentioned, with the, for example, partitioning and also the scale and perf that you need is only available in the Enterprise Edition. Same as enterprise reporting and analytics. Even though you may have 4 CPUs or 16 sockets available in the standard edition, not all those CPUs or cores are fully leveraged when you perform operations such as, for example, building an index on the relational side, or when you're trying to run a multi-threaded analytic application on the standard edition. Enterprise Edition gives you that fully multi-thread application. So I'm going to switch right now and see what happened to our database tuning advisor and whether it's finished or not. So let me do it right this time so you folks can see. So this is the demo. Now the refreshing of the database is done and it created that index. So I'm going to dismiss this dialog and close Database Tuning Advisor. I'm done tuning my database. I don't need Management Studio either. I'm going to go back to my report. So here's the report, and before we created that index through the Database Tuning Advisor, it took 16 seconds to run. Let's refresh the report right now and see how long it runs. Wow, 19 seconds or so. So it went from 16 seconds to less than 10th of a, or a couple of tenths of a second. Let's try it again. Yeah, 0.05 seconds. So that's an improvement of way over more than 79% that even the DTA told us. So huge improvement. And you could see how easily you could use Database Tuning Advisor just to tune up your environment by using the standard edition. So let's switch back to slides. Okay. So we talked about the usage scenarios of the Enterprise Edition. Let's go and let's talk about what we are seeing as far as some of the mistakes that our customers are making. I just wanted to share that with you to make sure that you are choosing the right edition when it comes between Standard and Enterprise Edition. There's 60 plus features in in the Enterprise Edition that make it ideal to run your mission-critical application that demands a high availability, scale, and performance, as well as advanced analytics. These features are really kind of hard to justify it, like, by looking at the matrix that, oh well, there's high availability here and there, and that's the pitfall that most customers are falling into. What we've done is we've created a white paper where we actually have the business benefits of these features and how together, when they stitch together, they can meet demands of your business. It's not really a single feature in there that you can leverage to meet that criteria, but it's really when you push these things together, how you can leverage, for example, if say high availability is the hot topic in your particular workload, which high availability features of SQL Server Enterprise Edition you're going to leverage in order to meet your SLA. So that's where it's worth taking a look at this particular white paper. We have the address here to get a better understanding of what are these 60 features in the Enterprise Edition that make it ideal. With that, I wanted to show you how you can ensure business continuity with the Enterprise Edition by taking advantage of database mirroring technology, which we talked about earlier. And how does that work? So to demo this, what I've done is close the report, which is now running blazingly fast, to take a look at a specific scenario. So my scenario, let's say, is that I actually put that to a slide here. Hopefully you can see it. So my scenario is where I have a particular client that is connecting to my database system. And again, I'm using the fictitious business called Terabyte. And it's running on a instance of SQL Server called Inst1. Now, let's say I'm after two specific scenarios. One is I want a minimum downtime during upgrade. So number one cause of downtime, aside from human error, is, for example, applying patches or upgrading the system. How do I go and make sure that my business runs continuous while I'm upgrading, whether it's the hardware upgrade or the software upgrade or the application upgrade? How do I make sure that my application keeps running? How do I ensure that business continuity? The second scenario is, how do I make sure that if the system accidentally goes down, whether it's an accident or whether it's a disaster, how do I make sure that my business continues to run? And again, disaster recovery, the cause of it could be a natural disaster, it could be terrorism, it could be malicious. But how do I guard myself against those unplanned downtimes? So the first one is planned downtime, where you're upgrading your system yourself, and the second one is unplanned. This is where database mirroring is great technology. In order to implement database mirroring, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a mirror site, which could be in the same data center, or could be in a geographically dispersed place. We have customers who go from one side of the planet to the other side as far as setting up their mirror and principal. So I'm going to have a mirror of that environment. And what I've done here is I'm going to copy my database called terabytes into the mirror environment. So that's a mirror of my principal. And these two are connected through the wide area network, or if it's in the data center, through the LAN. But these two environments are connected. Then I need a witness in my database mirroring forum called, so it can actually do the automatic client reconnection. So when the client is trying to connect the principal and the principal is not available, it will automatically fail over to the mirror. As I mentioned, just to make a point here, the witness is very lightweight and it can actually run on SQL Express. So if you're planning to implement this in your environment, you don't have to run your witness on a paid license edition of SQL Server. You can actually just do it on the free SQL Express. Of course, it can be on another server, and any of these could be combined. But just to make a point here, as far as what is the common usage scenarios of Express, I have specifically chosen my witness to be on SQL Express. And the next thing I'm going to do is build a database mirroring quorum, meaning I will make sure these three nodes can talk to each other by sharing information relevant to application continuity. Okay, so let's go and take a look at the application. So I have built a simple application here called, let me minimize this right now, called Terabytes. My target server, as you see, is the first instance, as I had in my diagram. I have set the failover partner to be Inst2. And again, that could be local, that could be in the same data center, or it could be on the other side of the planet. And the mirror database is Terabytes, as I showed on the picture. So I can go ahead and connect, and you can see here that it tries to connect to the target server, which is Inst1 right now. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the architecture behind the scenes. I'm going to switch to Management Studio and connect to Instance 1 And you can see that the database here is terabytes. So there's the database here, and it's connected right. The application is connected to it right now. And I'm going to connect to instance 2 and take a peek. So this is my mirrored instance, and see what I have in there. See, there's no database in there that is called terabytes. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a script that will back up my, let me run the script and explain it to you what it's doing. What the script is doing, if we can minimize this here a little bit. Okay, so what it's doing is it first is backing up my terabytes database on my instance 1. Then it backs up the tail end of the log. Once it's done doing so, then what I'm going to do is go on the second instance, which again, back in the diagram, it could be in the same data center or geographically dispersed, and I'm going to restore that database that I just backed up from the principal onto the mirror. So this is the restore database. And then I'm going to apply the log that I have backed up from the principal onto the mirror. Okay. One thing for those of you who are going to try this after the demo, make sure when you apply the log, you leave the tail end of the log open with the no recovery option. What does that mean? In simple terms, that means the transactions that haven't been uncommitted, you don't want to go ahead and commit those, because database mirroring actually is like a real-time log shipping. What it does is any log that is applied, any kind of changes that is applied to the principal, that log is shipped over the wide area network or whatever network you have to the mirror, and it's actually applied there. So we just ran and we completed this operation of backing up and restoring onto the mirror. I'm going to go back here and do a refresh on the database here to see what happened. And as you see, it says terabytes is now in the restoring mode. The reason it says restoring is because the tail end of the log is open. Now, I'm ready to back up to establish my database mirroring quorum. How do I do that? I go to the principal, I go under tasks, and choose the option mirror. This pops up a wizard. Let me recite or move it here so you can see it. Where I need to configure the security between the 3 nodes in the quorum. So through a simple wizard, the first thing it says is, where do you want to store the security information so these 3 nodes can talk to each other? I say I can store it on the witness, and then I have to specify who's the principal and what ports these need to talk to each other. So my principal is int1, my mirror is int2, and it prompts me for the security information, and then my witness. And in this case, remember I said I want to use SQL Express as my witness. So here's my witness information, and that's all. What this does is it creates endpoints between these 3 nodes so they can talk to each other. Next, I need to start database mirroring. And I say, yes, I'm all set. I want to start database, the mirroring between these 3 nodes. Now what happens is, once that's done, you can actually see the status here. It's actually established. So you can see that it says the databases are fully synchronized. So I'm going to close my database mirroring wizard. I'm going to go back to Management Studio. And you can see it says principal synchronized. And if I do a refresh here, it says mirror synchronized. So now, instance 1 and instance 2 are principal and mirror of each other. So let's have some fun now. Let's say this application now starts entering rows into my orders table. So this is like an application right now that is running. And you can see every second or so, it enters a row into my orders table. Let's make this more fun and enter orders every tenth of a second. So now you can see that the orders are just pouring in. My business is on fire, and I cannot afford any downtime. If my instant one goes down, whether I want to upgrade it or if there's a disaster, this is critical for my business. Now, what if the system goes down right now? Well, traditionally, whether on SQL Server 2000 or other editions of SQL Server, your application would just go down until your site is up. Now, what I'm going to do is, through the Service Manager in Windows, to simulate a downtime, here's the SQL Server Instance 1 service. I'm going to go and stop that service, but I want you to pay attention and see what happens, because right now it's connected to Instance 1. When I do that, take a look at what happens to the application as it happens. So before I do that, I want to make sure that these two are still synchronized, the mirroring principle. There's no lag, because I really want this demo to work. Now I'm going to stop the service on Instance 1 and take a look at what happens to the application after the service stops. Application died, perhaps on this, maybe I was just running it too fast for the hardware to catch up with the log. So let me start it again. And connect. And make sure that my principal and error are synchronized. It says right now synchronizing, but it's still applying the log. Okay, so it's synchronized right now, and it's connected to Instance 1. I start entering my orders. I'll go and stop now the service. Let's take a look what happens. You should briefly go and connect to Instance 2. It's not working in this instance. Could be a hardware issue that I have at this point. But if things have worked, you can actually see that it goes and it connects to the second instance. Okay, moving on with the slides. So here's a quick overview of all the additions that we talked about, all the way from whether your workload is for a large enterprise or individual, and whether it's for client embedded or business critical. You can see that the additions of SQL Server can meet the demands of your business, but it's a nice overview to see where the business needs and the SKUs lie within next to each other. So quick summary of the session, determining which edition of SQL Server 2005, it's worth sitting down and taking a look at the features and try to compare it with your business demands to choose the right edition. Knowing the key differences is important. The white paper between Compact Edition and Express is a good resource, as well as the white paper we have between Standard and Enterprise Edition. And at this point, let's see. Here are some of the resources. If you want to learn more about the editions as well as other aspects of SQL Server. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Sarah. If you have questions, I'll be online to answer them. If not, have a great day or evening wherever you are. And it was an honor to be with you folks for 6 minutes or so. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Michael. As Michael mentioned, we will begin the question-answer session here in just a moment. So if you have any questions and answers, just go ahead and type those in to him, and he will be responding to those via text message, so he'll stay on the line and answer those. To view a replay of today's live event or to register for upcoming webcasts, please visit Microsoft.com/webcast, and you can see that on the screen. We'll also be providing a survey for you in just a minute. And by attending the live webcast and submitting the survey, you're entered to win the Zune digital media player, which is also seen on the screen. Cool little incentive there from Microsoft. And bear with me 1 second while the survey loads. And just take a couple of minutes to fill that out, your feedback and comments to help us create better webcasts for you. So take a minute, fill that out, type in a question for Michael, and he will go ahead and respond to any questions. So Michael, I'll just have you stay on the line and answer any questions via text, and that
Absolutely.
concludes the audio portion of this conference.